Last week while perusing the pages of Reddit, I stumbled upon a trailer for a fantastic looking new roguelite. Now if you guys have been watching this channel for a while, you know that I love my roguelites, especially any with beautiful, flashy pixel art animation, just looks so good. So it was no surprise to me when this trailer caught my eye. Immediately after seeing this trailer, I went right away to request a review code so that I could play and tell you guys about ScourgeBringer. So thank you to publisher Dear Villagers for providing the review code, and as you guys know, my opinion is unbiased and straightforward whether I pay for the game or not. So without further ado, commence. ScourgeBringer takes place in a world torn apart by a giant monolith from the sky, the titular ScourgeBringer itself. This massive anomaly has left the world in ruins for reasons no one has yet to discover. For years since the ScourgeBringer arrived, mankind has attempted to learn more about the mysterious entity, sending its best and brightest into the depths, only for them to never return. Enter Kyra, the strongest warrior in her clan. In a world left with nearly nothing, you take Kyra into the ScourgeBringer as the last hope for humanity. Please note that if you are playing the PC version of this game, you are definitely going to want to use a controller. Keyboard will probably work, but I feel like you're most likely going to have a much more fun and better time if you just plug in a controller. So if you don't have one for your PC, you might want to grab one before you pick this up, but don't worry, you can use any of these. Seriously, it's right there in the menu. You just plug it in and choose the buttons that you want it to cover, and that's what it do. As you start exploring, you learn that blood is a big thing here. As you fight off enemies, you'll earn droplets of blood, which are the only currency that Greed, the shopkeeper, will accept. And boy does he want a lot. The name Greed is very fitting. At first, I could barely ever afford anything he would offer, but thanks to random item drops and permanent skill tree upgrades, it does eventually become easier to afford stuff. There are also these little gold things, which are like golden blood, and you can use those to upgrade the skills in the skill tree. These are obviously going to be harder to come by because it wouldn't be much fun if you could just unlock all your skills really quickly. If you want to unlock skills to make progressing easier in this game, you're gonna end up doing a bit of grinding. With this game being a roguelite, luckily you won't feel the grind so much as levels are procedurally generated. However, this is a roguelite, and like most, it is difficult and you're probably gonna die quite a bit, especially when it comes to bosses. If you've never played a roguelite or just don't really know what they are, roguelites usually have procedurally generated levels, random temporary item drops, some form of permanent progression such as unlockable skills, stat upgrades, or permanent items, death resulting in having to start over in a newly generated level, and while it's not a hard rule, most of the good ones I've played have been pretty difficult. It's gonna take a mix of patience, grinding, and a good old dash of get good before you're gonna get past even the first boss. Fortunately for us, the combat in this game is a lot of fun, which is going to make getting good quite the treat. Imagine taking the combos and enemy juggling of your character action games like Devil May Cry and Bayonetta, but squishing it down into a 2D pixel art roguelite. And well, that is what ScourgeBringer is. You've got your basic light attacks, your heavy attacks to stun enemies, dashes which damage enemies as well as help you avoid damage, and your trusty revolver which deals heavy damage but is limited to 6 shots and only refills over time by fighting or by random item drops. Combining your attacks, gunfire, and dash attacks, all while juggling enemies in the air, avoiding damage, and even staying off the ground yourself as much as possible, well, it is just delightful. I almost feel like this game could benefit from a Devil May Cry style combo score meter and oh, wait, there is one that you can unlock via the skill tree. I guess I wrote that last line too soon before continuing the game. And keeping your combo meter earns you more droplets, hence more blood, hence more buying things. I write script good. There's even a power-up that rewards you with bonus damage for the longer you can fight without touching the ground, which is entirely doable in this game. Double jumps, dashes, and wall runs make it so you can actually go for quite a while without touching the ground, making movement in this game fun and flowy. This is where the comparisons to Celeste will come in. Boss fights, as I mentioned, are challenging, but they also are a lot of fun. Frustrating, sure, but fun. Constantly comboing to try to get that massive health bar down as quickly as possible, while also carefully watching for telegraphed attacks so you can time your dodges and get out of the way. Something I'm not all that great at. Graphically, the game looks like a combination of games that have come before it. Part Celeste, part Flint Hook, part Monolith, which, by the way, is a neat little roguelite that doesn't get enough attention, and it deserves a lot. In fact, while the gameplay is referred to as a crossbreed of Dead Cells and Celeste, I'd say the map layout and enemy placement reminds me more of Monolith than anything. That being said though, the graphics are what immediately caught my eye with this game. The number of animation frames that make these animations look so flowy and clean remind me of games like Flint Hook and Moonlighter, which to me look incredible. And this game is certainly no exception. It looks great, I mean just look at it. The music is not quite what I've come to expect in today's modern era of indie games. If it's not old school bloops and bleeps, it's 80s inspired synthwavy stuff these days most of the time, which I'm a fan of, but it's kind of refreshing to hear something a little different. The music outside of combat sounds dark and ominous, almost like something out of Metroid, which yes, I have played a few of the games now since my Metroidvania video. They're only like, okay, I guess. But in combat, the music seamlessly shifts over to heavily distorted guitar like something out of the WWF Attitude Era. Nothing says battle music like power chords. Now you may notice in this gameplay footage that there are some watermarks at the top right and bottom of the screen. That's because ScourgeBringer is an early access game, available currently on Steam as well as Xbox Game Pass for PC. But I will tell you, this has to be one of the most polished and complete feeling early access games that I've played since Dead Cells. However, being that this is early access, there are a handful of things that I think this game could benefit from ironing out. I mean, for one, if you can't tell by how similar a lot of the gameplay footage looks, the game is a little repetitive. It's sort of a mishmash of like the same handful of different rooms all in a different order or formation on the map. In fact, for all I know, there may have been a time or two in this video where I used the same gameplay clip twice without knowing. That's actually entirely possible. You do start to feel the repetition a little more quickly than a finished game. Instead of rooms of varying shape and size like in Rogue Legacy, or just large continuing levels like in Dead Cells, each room is basically a square with varied platform placement, at least from what I've encountered in the first couple of areas. This is how Monolith had its room layouts, and while I still stand by the fact that it is a fun roguelite, I think personally I just prefer more variety in shape and size of rooms in roguelites. Just more bigness. More bigness, please. No fat jokes. That, and I do feel like Monolith's rooms are a little more varied compared to ScourgeBringer, at least at this point in early access. You also might notice that most of the footage is from the same area. Look, you try to play the game and get further, okay? It's hard. It's a hard game.
It's the competitive nature, bro. It's about respect, bro. It's about pride.
I'm also not a huge fan of the fact that in order to fight bosses, you have to find and fight the mini-boss first, every time. And at this point, it's not like it even could be one of many random mini-bosses, it's always just this thing, at least in the first area. Considering you can't leave new rooms without clearing out all the enemies first, it's not like you could just simply speedrun your way through to the mini-boss and then the boss room and avoiding taking damage. This is where that getting good comes into play that I mentioned. It makes it so unless you get really lucky with room placement, power-ups, etc., you're probably not going to go into a boss fight without taking at least a little bit of damage. And while it's entirely possible to permanently upgrade your maximum health pretty quickly in this game, you're gonna need at least most of it if you want to stand a chance against the first boss. And to make matters worse, when you go into the second area, your health still stays at whatever it was after finishing off the boss. So if you beat a boss with only like 2 health left, unless they happen to randomly drop a health refill, you're going into the second area with only 2 health. And it gets harder from there.
I'm gonna lose. Like, are you kidding?
Look, I know these games are supposed to be challenging and it's kinda supposed to prolong the amount of time you spend with it, and it's doing a good job of that so far, but, I mean, maybe I just suck. Like, comment, and subscribe if I suck. I really don't like to cover early access games on this channel all that much, unless I really see that at the point of early access that the game is in, it's good, it's real good. So yeah, if an early access game seems good enough, and it seems like something that I feel deserves to be shown off to you guys at its current state, I will talk about it, and that is the case with ScourgeBringer. In fact, I think the last time I talked about an early access game like this was with Dead Cells, and that game went on to be a lot of fun and just have a nice, successful release, with regular updates and DLCs still coming out. I only hope to see that ScourgeBringer has as bright of a future ahead of it. So tell me what you guys think of it. If you want to check it out, it is available on Steam and on Xbox PC Game Pass beta thing. And then later on, after early access, they are planning to bring it to PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and so on. And I think it's something that you should keep an eye out for if you don't want to check it out in this early access state. Just wishlist it, write it down, keep it in your memory. ScourgeBringer, in the future, check it out.